Rachel Zegler just keeps making things worse with the Walt Disney Company. The more that she tries to defend this movie, the more that she tries to spew her agenda onto the general public, it's only making matters worse. Not just for Bob Iger, but for whatever is left of the image of Disney as a whole.
Is extraordinarily woke, but she's woke in a way that's quite deranged.
I say, if I'm going to stand there 18 hours in a dress of an iconic Disney princess, I deserve to be paid for every hour that it is streamed on.
And if you disagree with this sentiment, I don't need your business. Thanks.
Then they decided to cast Rachel Zegler, who is Hispanic, as Snow White. Now, again, you can cast people however you want to cast people. I really don't care. However, Snow White, in which the description of the character is skin as white as snow, lips red as the rose, right? I mean, there's an actual physical description of the part. Not my fault it's written that way.
Jonah Platt, whose father helped produce the latest Snow White film, had some very harsh words for star Rachel Zegler.
For context, Variety wrote a report recently titled Inside Disney's Snow White Fiasco, Death Threats, Beefed Up Security, and a Social Media Guru for Rachel Zegler. EV Magazine wrote on X, when you compare how Rachel Zegler spoke about Snow White to how other actresses who played live-action Disney princesses spoke about their character, really underlines just how poorly she carried herself.
No one on the right side of America can stand the star of this movie.
Inexplicably continued to post herself in an empty theater for her own movie.
Yeah. Weird.
You know, it's so funny. These are like the look of people. Like, does this actually look like a happy person? It's always in the eyes, man. It's always in the eyes. If you cover up the mouth and you look at just the eyes, no, you see evil, in fact. Right? If you look at just the eyes, it's evil.
The enchanted forest has turned thorny, and the magic mirror reflects a studio in crisis. What began as a highly anticipated live-action reimagining of Snow White has spiraled into a real-life drama more gripping than any fairy tale. Whispers from inside the Magic Kingdom suggest that Rachel Zegler, the actress who donned the iconic gown, found herself summoned to an emergency summit with Disney's legal eagles. The gravity of the situation, potential contract breaches, significant reputational damage, and the chilling prospect of looming lawsuits hanging over the production. The plot thickened with an unexpected twist that sent shockwaves through the studio. Just moments after sharing a lighthearted update about her rehearsals for Romeo & Juliet, Zegler added a starkly contrasting message: and always remember Free Palestine. This seemingly disparate statement,
thick of rehearsals for Romeo plus Juliet, so I'm going to get out of here. Bye for now. The Variety story notes how a couple of minutes after posting this, she replied to her own tweet and wrote, and always remember Free Palestine.
I'll quickly mention this. The son of Snow White producer Mark Platt, Jonah Platt is the son's name. He is speaking out publicly against Rachel Zegler and blaming her for the film's catastrophic failure at the box office.
As Variety reported, left Disney executives reeling. The mixing of a promotional tweet with a political stance triggered alarm bells, leading to a swift transatlantic flight by producer Mark Platt to engage in a face-to-face discussion with the young star in New York.
Mix a promo tweet with a political statement. As a result, Mark Platt flew to New York to speak with her in person.
This emergency meeting thrust Zegler directly into the heart of the storm, raising critical questions about how a project once brimming with promise devolved into such a public relations quagmire. It also underscores the delicate tightrope walk that celebrities navigate between their professional obligations and their personal beliefs.
Where we can entertain responsibly, obviously we try to do that. We try to have a positive impact on the world. But the first thing we need to do is entertain.
The producers, far left-wing activists in Hollywood, are turning on her, and Disney has canceled all of Rachel Zegler's appearances on their media platforms.
A tension that can have significant repercussions in the fiercely brand-conscious world of Hollywood. Adding to the turmoil was the film's disastrous performance at the box office. Against a staggering production budget rumored to be between $240 and $270 million, Snow White has only managed to recoup a paltry $43 million domestically and around $84 million globally.
Snow White's budget was around $240 to $270 million. It has made $43 million domestically so far and around $84 million globally per Box Office Pro.
This stark financial reality has ignited a furious blame game. Initially, the narrative emanating from Disney hinted at potential missteps by its leading ladies, suggesting that both Rachel Zegler and her co-star Gal Gadot, who portrayed the evil queen, might have violated contractual clauses by either failing to adequately promote the film or, more damningly, by publicly disparaging the beloved 1937 animated classic that serves as its foundation. The insinuation was clear. Perhaps the very stars meant to illuminate the film's path had inadvertently cast a shadow over its success. However, a counter-narrative began to emerge from Zegler's camp, painting a far more complex picture of the film's unraveling. Allegations of internal sabotage and corporate politicking surfaced, suggesting that forces within the studio itself might bear more responsibility for the project's downfall than any stray comments made by its actors. The fact that Disney felt compelled to call Zegler into an urgent face-to-face meeting with their legal team speaks volumes about the level of concern and the potential for a more aggressive legal stance if negotiations fail to yield a resolution. This development reframes the controversy, hinting at deeper internal conflicts that may have plagued the production from its inception.
Saying that audiences will always line up to see her no matter what she does.
Every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
You know what's interesting about all this is that the only person waiting in line to see Snow White was Rachel Zegler.
Fueling Disney's reported legal concerns were Zegler's past remarks regarding the original Snow White film. Her description of it as dated and weird and her characterization of Prince Charming as a stalker ignited a firestorm of criticism among Disney purists. The studio now appears to be exploring whether these comments constitute a breach of contract.
And a lot of what you see with Zegler is really just this pretty common Gen Z mentality and approach to work.
The film received backlash for various reasons in the lead up to its release. Zegler had called the original Snow White movie dated and weird and said Prince Charming was a stalker.
Specifically a clause that likely requires cast members to uphold and protect Disney's cherished legacy. This line of inquiry delves into the often murky territory of how actors are expected to speak about the projects that employ them, particularly when those projects are based on iconic and beloved intellectual property. Adding another layer to this already convoluted saga is the outspoken criticism from an unexpected source, Jonah Platt, the son of Snow White producer Mark Platt. His public condemnation of Rachel Zegler, directly blaming her for the film's catastrophic box office failure.
I'll quickly mention this. The son of Snow White producer Mark Platt, Jonah Platt is the son's name. He is speaking out publicly against Rachel Zegler and blaming her for the film's catastrophic failure at the box office.
Further intensified the public scrutiny and internal tensions surrounding the production. This familial connection adds a personal dimension to the professional fallout, highlighting the deep divisions and high emotions swirling around the film's reception. Meanwhile, inside the hallowed halls of Disney headquarters, a palpable sense of panic reportedly gripped executives as the stark reality of the film's underperformance sank in. The fear wasn't just about recouping the massive investment. There was a growing concern that this misstep could actively tarnish the prestige and enduring appeal associated with the Snow White brand, a cornerstone of the company's identity. Beyond the immediate legal wrangling and finger-pointing, the Snow White debacle has exposed deeper creative and conceptual fault lines. Many viewers and critics pointed to the film's modernized tone and significant departures from the beloved source material as key reasons for its failure to resonate. The radical redesign or outright removal of the dwarfs, a central element of the original story, became a lightning rod for criticism.
And do you not understand how humiliating this is? Meanwhile, the experience at Minecraft goes something like this.
Longtime Disney enthusiasts accused the studio of prioritizing trendy messaging over the timeless charm and classic soul that made Snow White an enduring cinematic treasure. This backlash underscores the delicate balancing act that studios face when attempting to reimagine iconic tales for contemporary audiences, the risk of alienating the very fanbase that holds these stories dear. In a surprising twist, Rachel Zegler has reportedly begun to push back against the narrative that casts her as the primary culprit in the film's undoing. Leaked correspondence suggests that studio officials themselves explicitly directed cast members to promote the new Snow White as a modern, empowering figure, a stark contrast to the perceived traditionalism of the 1937 animation. If these revelations are accurate, Disney's current stance of potentially holding Zegler accountable for statements she believed were in alignment with the studio's own marketing strategy could be perceived as disingenuous. This raises serious questions about the communication and expectations set forth by the studio during the film's production and promotion. Adding fuel to the fire, Disney's own CEO, Bob Iger, has publicly stated that the company's mission is to entertain, not send messaging.
Where we can entertain responsibly, obviously we try to do that. We try to have a positive impact on the world. But the first thing we need to do is entertain.
This statement appears to directly contradict the alleged marketing directives given to the Snow White cast, further highlighting the potential for internal inconsistencies and strategic miscalculations within the studio. As Snow White stumbles towards becoming one of the worst-performing live-action Disney adaptations ever, the emergency legal meeting with Zegler can be seen as a desperate attempt by Disney to both salvage its public image and prepare for the very real possibility that internal conflicts could erupt into full-blown legal confrontations. This situation underscores the precarious position actors can find themselves in when a film's creative vision clashes with a studio's post-release damage control efforts. The blame game, however, reportedly extends far beyond the cast. Multiple insiders have claimed that Disney's leadership was deeply divided from the outset regarding the extent to which the Snow White narrative should be modernized. One faction supposedly championed a radical reimagining, while another cautioned against alienating core family audiences by drastically altering iconic elements like the dwarfs and the central romance. Zegler herself has alluded to potential executive sabotage, suggesting that some high-ranking officials may have deliberately undermined the production's direction, possibly for political or financial gain. Regardless of which internal faction ultimately prevailed, the result has been a cinematic and public relations disaster. The question now is why those very leaders appear to be focusing so intently on legal remedies rather than accepting a degree of accountability for their own potential missteps. The ramifications of this unfolding drama extend beyond the immediate fate of the Snow White remake and its stars. Disney shareholders are also expressing growing dissatisfaction, fearing that this fiasco signals deeper flaws in the company's broader strategy for remaking animated classics, a strategy that has been a significant profit driver in recent years. There's a palpable concern that alienating longtime fans risks eroding the multi-generational bond that Disney has painstakingly cultivated over decades. In this context, the possibility of Disney moving to penalize or scapegoat a high-profile performer like Rachel Zegler transcends a simple legal dispute. It becomes a matter of brand survival. If Zegler were to publicly accuse the studio of betraying its own directives or its cast, the resulting public relations fallout could severely exacerbate an already precarious situation. Adding to the sense of disarray are widely leaked internal communications that paint a sobering picture of the turmoil within Disney's ranks. Some emails reportedly detail executives' concerns about the film's direction months before its release, suggesting that the controversies now erupting in public were foreseen but left unaddressed. Other communications reveal an abrupt pivot by the marketing team as negative online buzz intensified, including instructions to downplay Zegler's interviews in promotional materials. Despite these efforts, Zegler's face and voice were already indelibly linked to comments perceived as mocking the original film, making her an easy target once the negative sentiment took hold. Should these internal communications surface during any official proceedings spurred by the emergency meeting, they could potentially shed light on the extent to which Disney's strategic miscalculations contributed to the film's failure and whether Zegler's statements were initially endorsed at higher levels before being deemed detrimental. Ultimately, many critics argue that no single individual can bear the full weight of responsibility for the film's undoing. The confluence of factors, the radical overhaul of key Snow White motifs, the inherently challenging task of appealing to both progressive and nostalgic audiences, a market saturated with remakes, and a star-driven marketing narrative, all converged to create a perfect storm of discontent. Rachel Zegler's personal brand, previously lauded for her breakout role in West Side Story, was intended to inject youthful vitality into a timeless fairy tale. Ironically, that same youthful candor may have inadvertently amplified the controversies. Now, with the emergency meeting concluded, the crucial question remains: can Zegler and Disney's legal team find a mutually acceptable path forward, or are both sides poised to dig in their heels, risking a protracted standoff that further tarnishes the legacy of Snow White? For the legions of fans watching from the sidelines, this entire saga feels jarringly out of sync with the idyllic wonder long associated with Disney's fairy tales, transforming a beloved classic into a cautionary tale of corporate discord and the perils of misplaced modernization. The magic, it seems, has temporarily vanished from the Magic Kingdom.